legitimate candidates, and you see the odds on your screen according to ESPN Bet. Joe Burrow, as you see, well behind the leaders at 16-1. Last night, Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football said he would vote for Burrow, as did Micah Parsons, who expanded upon his reasoning on his podcast.
He, without a doubt, should be MVP. I think if you ask anybody in the league right now, this ain't just me. We talked about in the locker room, we said Joe Burrow was the best quarterback we faced. And we played Lamar this year. You can ask anybody on the team. We said Joe Burrow was the best quarterback in the National Football League this year, without a doubt.
Just the fact that he thinks that he should be saying those things is fascinating to me and delightful. Thank you, Micah. Please keep the opinions coming. But do you agree, Dominique Foxworth?
I don't agree. I think that there's two legitimate front runners that either one of them, Allen or Lamar Jackson, get it. I'm fine with that trophy going to one of those guys. I don't think Joe Burrow is a realistic contender because while we do change the criteria from year to year, there's some things that we kind of accept as being true about being the MVP. It'll be really unusual for the first time ever that we take a quarterback who's playing great on a team that's not going to make the playoffs. Right. That to me feels like so far out of the tradition that it feels like it's unfair to the history of.
What if he makes it? Would it change it to you? Is it relevant if he makes it?
The problem with him making is that then we start focusing on team success, and then you look at the other quarterbacks who are having equally, arguably better seasons and have more successful teams. It just so happens that sometimes, because of all the other circumstances around, a great quarterback having a great season just doesn't deserve the MVP. And I think that's the way that it works out for Joe Burrow right now. And the same thing could be said for Saquon. I'm sorry. Even if you break the record, just so happens that we have two of the greatest quarterbacks likely in the history of the league having their best seasons right now. One of those guys got to get it.
Maybe three. You could argue Burrow is having his best season too. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, look, I respect Dominique, but who am I to argue with a coalition that includes Troy Aikman and Micah Parsons? That is a wide range. So look, I think Burrow. I think Burrow's the most valuable player in the league. I think those words, most valuable, right, which get us in all kinds of trouble when we debate this, right, because it doesn't mean best and it doesn't mean on the best team. They've won 8 games. I believe without Joe Burrow, if you put another quarterback in there, given the way their defense has performed this year, there's a chance they would have won 0 games. And I think that's kind of the definition of most valuable. He has 8 straight games where he's gone over 250 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. That's insane.
It's by far the record, too. The record had been 6.
So he's playing the best. Now, I am a hypocrite, right? Because when I used to vote for MVP in Major League Baseball, when I was a baseball writer, you had to make the playoffs to win it for me. So I don't vote for the NFL MVP, so I can be a hypocrite here. I don't actually have to follow through on what I'm saying. But I think if you look at the words most valuable, those 3 guys, I'm not counting the running back, those 3 quarterbacks, I'll make.
You made so many points that I want to fight against, but I know Tim.
Let me get Tim in here. Tim, if you want to vote, we could put the picks up on the screen. I know. Go ahead, Tim. Jump in.
Well, I was just going to say, look, you take Saquon off the Eagles, they wouldn't win as many games as they won. Same thing with that argument that you would win fewer games if you take these MVP candidates off of that team. Of course, that would be the case with Lamar in Baltimore, everywhere. I guess. When I look at it, I do think you need to make the postseason. I do think you also have to look at, how the team is built. The reality is, Joe Burrow is an awesome quarterback. He's having a great season. Their defense isn't very good, and they basically are paying 2 number 1 wide receivers. Most guys don't have that. And so you got a bad defense with 2 number 1 wide receivers. You should have really good numbers. That should happen. Just because.
Oh my God, that's absurd. That's absurd. Again, why does people want to take everything away from Joe Burrow? Do they want to give him nothing? I don't understand. Do they want to give him nothing? Do they not want him to have a running back? Do they not want him to have an O-line? Do they not want him to have wide receivers? And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have now played every single game together this season. Okay, so just stop. Seriously, just stop. Most teams do not have Derrick Henry as their running back. You think that helps Lamar Jackson a bit? The answer is yes, it does. Yes, it does. Does having a great O-line and having Jalen Hurts and AJ and Devontae help Saquon Barkley? The answer is yes, it does. Yes, it does. So just stop. Patrick Mahomes says Andy Reid. You think that helps? The answer is, say it with me. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So why do they only want to do this game with Joe Burrow? Like, it's so frustrating. So frustrating. Joe Burrow has been balling. He's not just putting up good numbers. He's putting up historic numbers. I mean, look at this. Look what he's doing right now. 4,600 yards, 42 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Compare that to Rodgers in 2011. Compare that to Brady in 2007. Did they get the MVP? Yes. Both of them. So to kind of act like it's ridiculous to even consider Burrow, I understand if you want to put some of these other players ahead of them or something. Like, that's actually what makes this kind of an awesome discussion at the end of the day. It's an exhausting discussion, but when you have everyone pick someone different and truly believe it, it's actually kind of cool. It is. It makes sports discussions fun because there actually is no right or wrong answer. I've said that a million times now with the MVP. And this is my first year really having this conversation throughout the season. I've always had these conversations with friends or with myself, honestly, yelling at the TV, at the computer, wherever, comment section. And this is my first time now I have to actually like think out loud, have people comment on my thoughts, and then I reevaluate my thoughts. And I'm reading the comments even more deeply than I ever have in the past when I like didn't have a channel and stuff. And so it's fascinating to see. And my conclusion is like, I got no idea, man. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's like, who could honestly pick? But like, to act like Joe Burrow is not deserving, or that there has to be this binary, like, you're a top seeder, you're not, you're in the playoffs or you're not. I do understand that you want the team to be in the playoffs. I do think that's fair, but also, like, Joe Burrow is putting up cartoonish numbers, as we saw in that graphic. I mean, when you think about what he's done and how, if he just had a competent defense, look, how many games did Tom Brady win? How many games did Aaron Rodgers win? We know what happened. So it's just kind of bizarre. And to just be like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, just stop, man. Just stop. And stop acting like T. Higgins is this like bona fide, undisputed number one wide receiver. Is he a number one receiver with the Eagles? No. Is he a number one wide receiver with the what team did I just say? Did I say the Steelers? I forget now. I didn't mean to say the Steelers. Would he be the number one wide receiver with like the Vikings? No. With the Eagles? No. Like, I'm not so sure where you're saying that he's like an automatic number one wide receiver, where it's just like they're acting like Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase and AJ Brown. Like, that's not the case here. Higgins is a great wide receiver, but they're acting like it's just like all he does is just gotta like throw it up and those guys just find a way to catch it. That's not necessarily the situation here. It's just not. And you're also talking about, like, again, injuries, missing games. Joe Burrow had to play the Eagles with just Jamar Chase. And again, you're talking about having no O-line, no run game, starting to finally get a semblance of a run game. Like, I just don't understand. I really don't. Like, these are the aspects of this conversation that actually do drive me crazy. Because you're like, oh, well, of course you should put up good numbers. You had Derrick Henry, who was also on track to break Dickerson's record. Okay, and if they like what? In pretty much every single big game that the Baltimore Ravens had with a big win, you can point to Derrick Henry going berserk, ripping off massive runs, having one of those cartoonish, moments that we see where it looks like, how can this guy run away from someone because he looks too big? Looks like literally like a cartoon bull. So, like, no. No. Madness. Madness, madness, madness. And again, in a lot of ways, if we say that you need to have a certain number of wins or be in the standings at a certain spot in order to be considered for the MVP, that's fair, but then that logic, you have to follow that logic to the end. Because logically, that then you would have to put Patrick Mahomes at the top of the MVP list as well, having the number 1 seed, the best seed in the NFL, the best record in the NFL. You'd have to now also put in Sam Darnold, Jared Goff. Like, all those things would have to exist. And then I would also say, where was Brock Purdy's MVP last year? So, again, if you're going to have a certain set of logic that dictates your conclusion, you have to continue to follow it down the line. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Joe Burrow being the MVP? Do you think he should be considered to be the MVP? Do you think it's fair, not fair? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.